We're going to talk about how the training sessions are going, what they look like, different protocols that we're going through, and kind of give you an idea of what the future will look like as well. Welcome, everybody, to episode 14 of the Jimmy and Kyle Show. The man, the myth, the legend, Jimmy McAllister. How's it going, man?
I'm doing really well. I just had a job offer, actually. It's in Hollywood. Stunt double for Conan. You know, Conan and Brian. If he can't make a show, I can be a stunt double. So I'm not getting a haircut ever again. I'm just going to let it grow, Kyle. Never again am I going to get a haircut.
Do the hair flip like him.
I don't know if I can get it to stay like that, but he's one of my favorites. So I got to do something like that.
So today on the show, we're going to talk about, now that we've started back up to training for a week and a half, 2 weeks now, we're going to talk about how the training sessions are going, what they look like, different protocols that we're going through, and kind of give you an idea of what the future will look like as well for the training sessions that we've got. So, Jimmy, you want to run us down kind of some of the basic ideas of the training sessions right now, curriculum, whatnot?
Yeah, I think first and foremost, I've always said to people that to be a very, very good youth soccer coach, you have to be a parent. I don't think you can understand what us as parents go through unless you have children playing. It's easy to say, oh, look at that parent, or that parent did this or that. Well, I'd like to thank the parents who've been great in the training sessions I've been to. They've distanced, they've stayed away, they've done what we've asked them to do. And it's very difficult because everybody wants to watch their kid play. I can tell you that through watching my son play. I played in the North American Championship in 1977. I was more nervous when my son played in a championship game than I ever was when I played. So the first thing you want to do is watch your kids play. And I know that has to be challenging and difficult to stand in the parking lot with a mask on and not be able to see the kids play. We're socially distancing. We're following the rules. I'd like to say that with all the RCL clubs in the state of Washington Youth Soccer, I'm very proud of what they've done. Everybody's pulled together and worked very hard to try to get this right. You may go by other fields and see lacrosse or see baseball, and there's 100 kids out there and they're standing next to each other. They're doing whatever they're doing. I can honestly tell you I'm very, very proud of how far the soccer community has advanced and how much work's been put into this socially distanced training. I'll be the first one to say it's not get in there and compete and play and tackle and fight. That element of the game's not there yet, but you have to get what they give you and make the best out of a bad situation. So we're distancing. We're in groups of 5. And I'll tell you, with the advice of John Dresner and Jasmine, our trainer, we had a young person test positive for the coronavirus. And we were fortunate enough to have groups of 5. We knew who their group were. The other 4 were tested, and they tested negative. So it shows that, and the only case we've heard of in the club, it shows that the social distancing works. It makes sense. And that's the phase we're in.
Yeah, and to be clear, that person probably contracted it before the first ever training session they had, and then came and tested that.
Well, yeah, he had it the night after our first session. So, but in the end of the day, it was interesting to me, and I wish him the best, obviously. But the protocol worked. What we did worked. There has been some editing and Team Snap that we have to do to make sure we know who's there and who's not there and why they're not there. Because if we have an unexcused absence, our people are calling to find out what's going on, to see if we need to quarantine or socially distance or ask for the health of our kids. And, the kids bring it home if that's an issue. So we have to be very, very careful. And, safety is the number one priority as always. So, again, from my perspective, going out and watching the trainings, it's not quite full-blown soccer, but, we're out there, we're training. And, I think the trainings are serving good physical fitness because I see some of the kids are wiped after 45 minutes. Remember, we've been sitting on the couch for 3 months. Hey, I went out and played 9 holes of golf in a cart and I was tired. So I can only imagine what the kids feel, so.
Well, you were out at my sessions the other morning and the curriculum is built to have that fitness in there. And there's no amount of running or other work you're going to do outside on your own that's going to substitute for a proper training session or game. And I mean, you could see in 30 minutes of the 45-minute session, the kids were gassed. They were huffing and puffing, and it's good for them, you know. And then the one thing I've seen in the first few sessions that I've had is the kids are super excited just to be there and actually physically see their teammates and whatnot and feel like they're part of something. And coaches as well. I mean, I know that I'm tired of being on Zooms and excited to be back on the field because that's why we do it, you know, to be on the field. And
it's tough to see your 8 and 9-year-olds come in a mask, but that's where we're at, and they've done a great job. When I first heard the kids had to wear masks to training and this and that, I thought, oh, this is going to be a nightmare because, you know, the kids want to be together and the kids want to play. But they've been very good. And again, I attribute that to the parents talking to the kids about what this is, why it is what it is. And I think we've done a pretty good job. Like I said before, I know the correspondence that's gone together in the RCS, which is a regional club league, about talking about what we can do, what we can't do, the work that John Dresner and UW Medicine has done. I'm real proud of the way that soccer, the Washington State Youth Soccer, which you're a part of course, Kyle, in the scheduling aspect, has been very, very professional. To be honest with you, soccer's light years ahead of some of the other youth sports, and I will argue that with anybody.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, as evidenced by, you know, we get pictures from parents sometimes of other sports playing down the street. Well, look at this huge group. And, you know, it's unfortunate. And if we do know people there, we try to help them out. But we can only control what we can control. So I think, like you said, we've done a great job. The parents have been really good about communicating to their kids about how to show up to training, how to leave training, what you do during training, the coaches as well. The organization of it all has been fantastic.
And what we're guarding against, of course, is somebody bringing the virus into our camp from elsewhere. And again, that takes the discipline of the kids, which is very difficult. You might guess I wasn't the most disciplined of kids when I was a kid, but you know, the older kids, they have social lives and they want to see their friends. And part of life is being social, having friends and gathering, and that's been taken away from them. And it's very, very difficult. I think that there was an article in one of the medical journals that says, you know, athletic endeavor, getting together with your friends is critically important to the kids. I know this isn't games, and I'm not going to try to fool anybody, but getting together, being a part of a peer group, and being able to do something is critically important. Like I said, you know, they took golf away, and that's something I like to do. And basically, you know, we got back to golf, and I couldn't even remember what my score was, but I was out with my buddies, you know, talking and laughing and getting back to the social life that we all had. So I know it's tough for the parents, but this virus is going to be caught outside the club and being brought in. So we still have to be very, very careful of who our kids associate with, where they go. And myself as a kid, to be honest with you, I'd tell my mother, my father died when I was young, but I'd tell my mother I was going to a field to go jog and I'd go have a game. I mean, I didn't know. Always tell the truth. So I still might not always tell the truth. But anyway, to make a long story short, it's going to be brought in from the outside. And it's our job to make sure that we limit the exposure to our kids.
So would you say as a kid, your motto is maybe sometimes it's better to ask for forgiveness than permission from your mom?
Well, you know what? I had a lot of mottos. I had some brother-in-laws that were older than me that tried to keep me in line. And my mom did the best job she could do, but you can only do so much with a hunk of clay. You know what I mean? You know, I think I was an ashtray or something. But, you know, in the end of the day, you know, it's hard. It's hard to not let our kids do things they want to do. You know what I mean? Yeah. It's hard taking away what they had in the past and saying this is a new world order and this is how you have to be. So, you know, all the things I hear about school and what they're looking to do in schools, and is it shifts in school or is it full-time school? Is it in-home learning? That's a huge burden on the parents. I mean, that's a huge hardship on everybody. So outlets like ours, I think, have a value as long as we do it safely, you know, and that's the key.
And we used a few teams at the very beginning as kind of test dummies for running the training session protocols, the curriculum, see how the curriculum worked, see how our protocols for entrance and exit worked, whatnot. And I called all my players after the first session, and I asked them, I said, how'd you like the session? And the one thing they all said was, it was great to be out there and see my teammates. And so I think you cannot understate the social power of these training sessions right now. I mean, it does these kids so much good in terms of mental health, just to be out there on the field, see their teammates, even though they can't go interact with them or tackle a ball away, whatnot. But that mental health part is huge. And I think that's kind of an unintended consequence of all this, and understandably. But these kids, being out there now with their teammates is huge.
I think at any level, whether you play select, you play Premier, you play World Cup, there's a certain amount of social aspect to it. I mean, that's why we play sports. Most of us, if not all of us, aren't going to be the GOAT or Michael Jordan. We play to interact with other people. And that's a huge part of the game. And like I said before in past shows, I played in some real big games in my career, but the things I remember, some of the fun things we did off the field. I still have friends from my first team in 1969, the West Seattle Hammers. I still see some of those people I played with that I don't know if I've mentioned, won the state championship at U12. I was 10. I don't know if I mentioned that. But, we still see each other. I mean, there's been some great soccer clubs in Washington and soccer teams in Washington, the Smetzer years, the Pete Fewings, the Jeff Stocks, and all these guys that have played. We all see each other on a regular basis, and they're friends. And it's where you associate. It's where your friends are. So it's really important that we provide that outlet, especially if schools are going to be, somewhat of a modified system or whatever else. It's critically important that we're able to provide this. And you know what? Yeah. I gotta tell you that I'm not stupid all the time. I think we have to modify what we do in these training sessions. We have to create new things to do. We have to introduce shooting into the sessions. Now I get it that we might not want to use goalkeepers and they spit on their gloves and they do all these things, and we could transfer it that way, but we have to introduce shooting via no goalkeeper, create games, put cones in between the posts to create ways to compete while we're doing social distancing, get a bit of shooting in and other things, because we have to progress this groups of 5 to some type of a competition that keep the kids interested and wanting to keep coming back. So like anything else, we'll try to add new wrinkles, new drills, new things to do while we're still in this phase to make it interesting for the kids so it keeps them coming back.
Yeah, great segue, because I wanted to talk a bit about the curriculum. And, in the first week and a half here, we've had those groups of 5. We've had them very socially distanced. I mean, kids have been mentioning, I didn't realize I was going to be so far apart from my teammates. One team per field. I mean, again, you were out in my session. I had 11 kids in the first session and 8 in the second session on an entire field, which obviously quite a bit of space for these kids. But, now that we transition out of that, we've done, passing pattern stuff, a lot of technical stuff. Now we're looking at putting 2 teams on a field here this coming week and into the future to see how that works. And, there's certain fields we won't do that with because they're a bit smaller. McGillivray obviously is a 77 field, so that'll just take 1 team. But the Ingrams, the Lower Woodlands, the Magnusons of the world, the Washington Parks that have a ton of off-field space and lots of space in general on the field because it's a bigger size field, we can get 2 teams on there comfortably still. Think about it. We're used to putting 4 teams on a field, and parents, and coaches and teams were perfectly comfortable with that, with a quarter of a field. So, we'll try this with 2 teams now on a field, progressing that curriculum as well, adding in some of the goals, like you said, and maybe, some teams may say, well, I'm not going to use a goalie, or I don't have a goalie. We still have goals. We can, like you said, set up cones in the corners of the goals, get finishing in that way, create targets somehow for them to finish too, rotate through the groups that are finishing. So only one group is actually finishing on the goal at a time. But those things, you'll start to see that curriculum progress, like you said, throughout the next few weeks as well. It's not going to be the same passing pattern type stuff, technical stuff. I mean, there will be a lot of technical stuff still in there because these kids still need that. and they need the instruction, the hands-on instruction of a coach actually being there correcting technique. But you'll see more and more start to go on in these sessions.
Well, and there could be use of pug goals inside the larger goals to create games, to create situations. There's all sorts of things we can do. And when you look at it, you phase in, again, the kids. One of the things people ask about at tournaments, and we can talk all day about things and
Sure.
the training. I hear all the time, well, why do we do this? Why do we do this? Our training schedule is one of the most complex things in the history of the world. I live next to a Boeing air traffic controller, and it's easier to bring in 747s into SeaTac than it is to do our schedule. Some coaches have 2 teams, some have 1. Some coaches are available on these nights. Some can train during the day in the summer. Some of the players can't train the day in the summer. There's all sorts of complexities that happen to these schedules, and nothing is ever as simple as it seems. I look at a problem and I say, well, this is pretty simple. And then when you get into the complexities, it's not quite so simple. But we have to keep advancing the curriculum through this socially distanced time to not only improve the kids, but we all become bored very quickly with things.
Mm-hmm.
We want to advance. We want to go forward. We want to get to the second chapter before we've read the first chapter. So
Sure.
I understand that, and I've asked Alex Chersky to make sure that the curriculum keeps advancing while we're still in this phase, to make it worthwhile and keep the kids stimulated and mentally stimulated in terms of what they're doing. The other thing that you find that kids need, and myself included, is competition. We need to keep
Mm-hmm.
score. We're people that want to know the score. When you play golf, what'd you score? What'd you shoot? That's the first thing they ask. Did you win? We want to keep score. So there has to be some type of game type situation where you can figure out on the day who the top 5 are or who the top 2 are. So there's all sorts of things like that. And I know that 45-minute sessions kind of stink when you drive an hour to get there in Seattle. I know the traffic's been, knock on wood for me, a little bit better here in the past week or so because of the situation we're in. But, it's awful tough to drive an hour in Seattle for a 45-minute training. So we're aware of that as well, and we try to do it the best we can. 2 of our major field sources, the University of Washington and Seattle Pacific University, aren't running their fields yet. So,
Right.
and, then you look at Shoreline Schools, they're not renting their fields yet. So there's some obstacles we have to overcome to get everybody's trainings in, period. So we're working on that and trying to deliver the best product we can. And I'm more than interested in hearing what anybody thinks about our product. They know where I am. I put my email out there all the time. Let me know. And if somebody has some great ideas, we're always willing to listen. So,
Yeah. I will say that I think that doing the field schedule is probably a little less dangerous than bringing a plane in to Boeing.
Maybe.
I think that the logistics of it might be as or more complex than doing it. And right now, I mean, the field schedule is normally a little bit, taxing to do. Right now, it's a little bit worse because Parks is prepared for anything. They're worried, there's going to be another shutdown. So they're releasing fields 1 week at a time. And you have to go back and request things. It takes 2-3 days to get things back because they're swamped with a lot of requests. So you'll see these schedules kind of come out in smaller chunks than we're used to. Normally, we're used to 2-3 month chunks of time that we get. Right now, it's going to be maybe 1-2 week chunks at a time. So bear with us while we sort through this.
Again, Kyle, because you have like 30, 40 kids or whatever you have, but that we like to be organized. My wife, God bless her, when the kids were around and I was playing for the Sounders, I was gone quite a bit. But you need to know a schedule. You need to know when and where you're training because people are busy. People are busy making a living, doing what they're doing. And, you want to know where you're going to be for the next week or 2 or 3 or 4. You want to organize your carpool. You want to be able to do all these things. And when you're doing week-to-week scheduling, it's very difficult for the parent group.
Super difficult.
To play at Seattle United, there's a few sacrifices you have to make in terms of fields. And like you well know, there's never enough fields. There's some fields that, quite frankly, right now, I don't want to go to. There's
Right.
some fields that are available that I will never, as long as I'm running the soccer side of this club, allow our kids to go to.
Right.
So there's all those issues that we deal with on a regular basis. And the parents are just asking for some consistency. Let me know where I'm training and so I can organize it with my friends or my
Yep.
carpool or whatever they need to do. So I understand all that as well. I know how hard it is. My son and daughter-in-law and my daughter and son-in-law, they both have kids. And I know how hard it is. And sometimes you have to help them running the kids around to get them to karate or, taekwondo or swimming lessons or whatever. It just takes a whole group of people. And the more organized and the quicker we can get stuff out, the better off it is. But in saying that, this is a real tough time right now, and we all have to show a little bit of patience, even if we don't particularly want to. So
Yeah. So what we've got for you now is a little 3-4 minute clip to show you what these training sessions look like if you haven't been able to see one. A lot of the parents, obviously, we ask them to go back to the car, whatnot, so you don't see the session exactly. We want to show you the spacing. We want to show you what's going on in these sessions. Our amazing director of the show, Santi Gessi, has put this training video together for us. He went out last week, filmed his daughter's training session run by Pat Staunton, and has put it together, and it's going to be narrated by the girls' coaching director, Rich Reese. So, Jimmy, before we get to that video, any last thoughts?
Yeah, I told Rich to, one of the things I've noticed in this game, it helps when you have an English accent. So when he narrates the film, I want him to throw in stuff like shrimp on the bobby and all that kind of stuff, so everybody can tell he's English.
What's that? That's Australian.
Well, Australian English is all kind of the same thing. But anyway, I wanted him to throw a few mateys in there, and it's always good in soccer when you have that accent. People will think it's more authentic. So
yeah,
and Pat's out there doing his stuff. So it's an all English show. It's like what do you call it? The Grumpy Pundits, or what are those other two guys? What are those two other guys that talk all the time?
Blazers.
The Men in Blazers. Maybe they could be the men in. They're the Men in Gilets. That is English for vest. The Men in Gilets. How's that?
You and I learned that term this past winter. I had no idea. I thought they were talking about the race.
Yeah. Pat asked me if I was wearing a gilet, and I didn't know what that means. It's kind of like Santi's name. We're talking. You say goose. It's really goose or goss. I can't say it, but it's vest, not gilet.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's going to be really worthwhile watching. Trust me.
Yeah. Check it out. And thanks for everybody for showing up today. And we'll see you next week. Have a good one.
This is Rich Reese and a video of Seattle United's return to play protocols and a model training session by our U13 ECNL team. As players arrive at their fields, they are requested to wear their face coverings, keep socially distanced on their way into the field. As you can see here, the players are put within groups for training but also for arrival at the fields. They are requested to keep their distance as they walk in, at all times keeping us in a good, healthy, safety environment. Once the players arrive at the field, they put their face masks into their bag, sanitize their hands, and then report to their area of training. The coaches will then run them through a series of training exercises beginning from warm-up all the way through technical, and then some tactical passing work. As you can see here, each player has their own workstation. Workstations are approximately 10 by 10, and they will run through a designed training session for ball skills and movement. At all times, Seattle United coaches are mandated to wear face coverings, and again they have a zone that they can walk through to coach the players, yet keep their own social distance for the safety of all involved. Here is our coach in his workstation running through a demonstration of what is next in training, so the players can then go off into their own zones and work again on those ball skills, at all times staying in their area and staying socially distanced from the next player. As training progresses from the technical work in their individual squares, players will be put into their pairs or their threes within their group of 5, which they are assigned, and we will work on some bigger passing. As you will see in this demonstration, the players are still working within their area, however they are now in their groups of 5, which is assigned at the beginning of training, and they work through different patterns of passing. At the end of training, the coach will dismiss the groups, group by group. Again, players are reminded to put on their face coverings, sanitize their hands, and then leave in a socially distanced manner. At all times, keeping our players and our families in a safe environment. Thank you to the 08s for a great demonstration. Stay well, stay healthy, and enjoy your return to play.